Today joining us all the way from Los Angeles is Jay Shetty. Jay, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really grateful to be here.
Congratulations on the book that you released, Think Like a Monk, I believe it is. I haven't had the opportunity to read it, but I look forward to reading it. And I wanted to ask you a question. Now, you are currently not considered a monk. Is that correct?
That's why I'm a former monk.
All right. And why are you saying think like a, do you still feel sometimes that you are a monk maybe?
So this is how I see it, that the monk mindset, right, is what I'm attracted to and what I believe in. So when I lived as a monk, when I physically dressed as a monk, when I shaved my hair, when I slept on the floor, that was like going to monk school. But since I've left, and it's been 7 years now since I left being a physical monk, I still believe that that monk mindset has stayed with me. And that's what's helped me find my passion. It's what helped me discover my purpose. It's what's helped me decide who I should have in my life and make some really important choices. And that's what I'm sharing with people through this book, is how they can live that same intentional, purposeful, and meaningful life by finding their passion and their purpose and finding that calm as well, just like a monk.
Tell us a little bit more. What can we expect from the book?
Yeah, absolutely. What you can look forward to is stories that I've never shared before, personal and stories that you've never heard before, about experiences that I've had that formed such pivotal moments in my life, from moments of being completely lost and stuck and not having my passion and purpose, to points where I felt like my life was going in completely the wrong direction, to really helping you find your passion and purpose. And I know that that's so important to so many people out there. We're so stuck and confused with, what do I do next? What do I focus on? This book's going to help you declutter, put the noise aside, and get focused.
Now, you've got an ever-growing fan base, not just across the world, but in the Middle East. But for those who do not know who Jay is, just very quickly, walk us through how all of this happened. How did you find yourself going from living the lifestyle that you did and to finding yourself in India and becoming a monk? How did all that happen?
When I was 18 years old, I actually met a monk. And that was the first time I'd ever met a monk and heard a monk speak. And I wasn't looking for any deeper messages. I wasn't looking for personal growth. I wasn't even looking for self-development. But a lot of my friends were getting into that space and they invited me to this event. So when I went to this event, I heard the monk speak. And when I heard him speak about using our passions to serve others, it really hit me. And it hit me really deep. And I thought to myself, wow, there's something in this. It's almost like the feeling you get when you first hear a billionaire speak, or you first hear an incredible athlete speak, or a musician speak. For me, I'd met people who were rich and famous and strong, but I don't think I'd ever met anyone who was happy. And this monk was happy. So I wanted to spend more time with him. And I started to spend my vacations and summer holidays in India and my Christmas holidays in India. And then after I graduated, I went to Cass Business School and studied management science with a focus on behavioral science. When I graduated, instead of taking my corporate job offers that I had, I decided to go and live as a full-time monk, because I wanted to live a life of service and I wanted to live a life of self-exploration. And that life felt like the best journey. But when I left that process after 3 years, I was enthused by wanting to share what I'd learned with the world. It's like when you've watched an amazing movie and you're like, you want to tell all your friends about it, or you've heard an amazing song and you want to tell everyone because it's so good. For me, it was like this wisdom was so hot that I was like, if I don't tell everyone about this, I'm keeping a rare jewel and a gift that belongs to the world.
You've actually made the 30 under 30 Forbes list. How often does that happen? Are you aware of anybody else who's a monk or an ex-monk that's actually made a Forbes list? And does that also make you a businessman? Obviously it does. How do you combine the two? How does that work?
I think when we look at other examples, yeah, it's tough to find. The only other monk that that I know well who's created an incredible enterprise is Andy Puddicombe, the founder of Headspace. So Andy was a monk for 10 years. But apart from that, what I find is that living as a monk was a lifestyle that I chose to have, and I honored it. And now that I've switched into a new world, I'm married now, I live in LA now, I still believe that I can have the mindset of a monk and apply that to business. I can apply that to entrepreneurship. And actually, I believe that's what allows us to be even more effective and successful, because guess what? When you live as a monk, you learn focus. When you live as a monk, you learn transparency. When you live as a monk, you learn human communication. When you live as a monk, you learn how to talk to yourself and understand yourself and manage your emotions. These are all the transferable skills that I'm trying to share with people. So I'm not telling people to live like a monk. I'm sharing with people how to think like one, because I believe that we are seeking peace in our day. We are seeking purpose in our day. And how amazing is it if we can use all this wisdom to better our lives and, most importantly, serve. I think that's the key, that a lot of people think business is about getting and about making and about growing. And actually, business and entrepreneurship are beautiful ways to have an impact and make a service. So one of the most beautiful lessons I learned as a monk is that everything is neutral, but it's given purpose by how you use it. So you have a big TV screen behind you, and it can either be used to share incredible messages from Forbes Middle East, or it can be used to portray hate and negativity. The TV is not good or bad. It's what you put on it that gives it meaning. And that's the same with money. That's the same with energy. That's the same with business. It is simply an energy which can either be used to serve others or used in another way.
Now, a topic that's nearly impossible to escape these days, the coronavirus, COVID-19. How are you guys coping with that in the meantime? How does Jay cope with the current stresses that are taking place?
One of the biggest things is, obviously everyone had plans for this year. I think people had plans. They had things they were expecting to do. Maybe you were expecting to travel to see your family, or you were launching a new business. For me, I had to postpone my book. I had to postpone my tour. I had to postpone so many areas of my life. And all I can do is feel grateful for the fact that I'm healthy, feel grateful for the fact that my family are healthy, and then think, how can I help others at this time? I think everyone is going through a crazy amount of change. And having dealt with a lot of change in my life, having quickly adapted at the beginning of this period, my goal was, how can I give? How can I serve back? So for me, I set up these 20 days of live meditation, and we went live every single day for 20 days, and over 10 million people joined in on these daily live meditations that happen at 9:30 a.m. LA time. And then I started another 20 days, and we're currently on day 12. So for me, I found certainty in service. In seeing how I could give back. And I can see people, what I love right now is seeing all the amazing things. Like, I'm not John Legend. I can't sing like John Legend with a piano, but I can teach meditation. And you might not teach meditation, but you might be able to advise entrepreneurs. And if you can't do that, then maybe you can deliver food to the hospital nearby you, or maybe you can teach kids of doctors and nurses maths and English, whatever it is. Like, we can all offer something. And I think when you find that right now, you feel so much more certain about what you're doing at this time.
A lot of people have misused social media. There's a lot of youth today, a lot of young people who are under pressure to look a certain way, to be a certain way on social media. What sort of advice do you actually have for them? Or how can one steer away from the pressures of social media and potentially use it in a positive way, as opposed to the negative impact that it could have, especially on the youth?
It's a great question. And I'd say that, and I've said this before, that whatever's on your news feed is feeding your mind. And so you've got to curate your news feed. You have to ask yourself, when I see this page, am I growing? Am I learning? Am I feeling more love? Or actually, when I look at it, am I feeling more pain? And am I feeling more stress? And am I feeling more pressure? Just as like when you eat food, I'm sure after you eat a piece of food, someone says, how did you like it? And you say, that was amazing. Or you say, that's the worst thing I've ever had. You give feedback, right? That's normal. It's normal to do that. And if you didn't like something, you wouldn't eat it again. If it didn't make you feel good, if it didn't digest well, you wouldn't eat it again. But sometimes even pages or accounts or things in our life that don't digest well, we keep going back to them. And that doesn't make sense. So we have to curate our feed. That's number one. The second thing I'd say is, don't let it become the first thing you look at in the morning. Social media can be an amazing thing, but allow yourself to set your mind before you allow other things to walk into your mind and other thoughts and ideas. And the third thing I'd say is use social media as a tool and set boundaries for yourself. So, I try and set boundaries in my home, and I fail at this all the time, but it helps to at least have them, is I try and set no social media times and zones in my home. So I try not to use social media before 9 a.m. and after 6 p.m. if I can. Of course, it's different for me because my whole life exists on social media. But also I try and set no social media zones. So at the dinner table, if I'm eating dinner with my wife, we're not on our phones. I think it's good to set those boundaries and limits. And even if you mess up like me, it's still healthy to have those because it's something to aspire to.
Jay, thank you very much for taking the time. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, that was Jay Shetty joining us from Los Angeles. We'll see you in the next episode.